On November 12, 2024, a driver walked into my shop furious, holding his gas receipts like proof of a crime. "I'm filling up twice as often," he said. "No check engine light, no noise, nothing feels wrong." And that's exactly why this problem is so dangerous. Your car feels perfectly normal, while a hidden setting and one tiny sensor are quietly torching your fuel economy behind your back. Over the last year, I've seen the same pattern hundreds of times. Perfectly healthy engines suddenly losing 20, 30, even 40% of their miles per gallon with zero symptoms. No codes, no warnings, nothing you'd notice until your bank account does. Today, I'm exposing the real reason this happens, the hidden sensor responsible, and the simple fix that can save you hundreds of dollars every single month. Once you understand this, you'll never ignore your miles per gallon again, because the truth is more shocking than you think. It starts the same way every time. A driver walks into the shop holding a gas receipt like it's a lab report. Frustrated, confused, sometimes even embarrassed. "I don't get it," they say. "My car used to go a week on a tank, now I'm filling up every 3 days." And they always follow it with the same line. "But nothing feels wrong." And that's the problem. If your engine misfires, you hear it. If your transmission slips, you feel it. If your brakes fail, you know immediately. But when a critical sensor deep inside the exhaust begins to fail, the car doesn't scream for help. It whispers, quiet enough that most drivers never hear it until their wallet does. The moment this particular sedan rolled into my bay, I could already tell something was off. The idle was smooth, almost too smooth, like the engine control unit was working overtime to hide a problem it didn't want the driver to notice. No warning lights, no codes, no rough shifting, no stumbles on acceleration. If you sat behind the wheel, you'd swear it ran perfectly. But the smell told me otherwise. A faint richness in the exhaust, just a hint of unburned fuel hanging in the air. Most people never notice it. Mechanics can smell it across the room. And when I revved the engine gently, the exhaust note thickened, like the car was burning fuel it didn't need. The driver stood beside me, shaking their head. "I don't understand. I take care of it. I change the oil. I use the same gas. How can fuel just disappear like that?" They weren't wrong to ask. Losing fuel economy without losing performance doesn't make sense unless you know how modern engines think. Here is the truth manufacturers never explain. Your engine does not decide how much fuel to burn. A computer does, and that computer relies on a handful of sensors to tell it how much air is coming in, how much exhaust is going out, how hot everything is, and how rich the mixture should be. If even one of those sensors whispers the wrong number into the engine control unit's ear, your fuel economy collapses instantly. And the worst part? The car usually will not warn you. While the driver kept talking, I plugged in the diagnostic scanner. I was not looking for codes, I was looking for behavior. The fuel trims were the first red flag. They were elevated, slowly climbing, like the engine was constantly trying to correct a mistake that kept happening over and over. That is the kind of pattern that destroys miles per gallon without setting off a single check engine light. Inside the exhaust stream, just inches from where fire and fuel explode thousands of times per minute, sits a small device no bigger than your finger. A device your car relies on every second of every drive. A device designed to withstand heat, soot, vibration, and condensation, but not forever. Eventually, it slows down, it gets coated, it loses accuracy, and once it does, the engine has no choice but to overcompensate. This device can quietly destroy your fuel economy. The driver noticed me staring at the scanner. The driver asked, "What do the numbers mean?" I said, "They mean your engine thinks it is starving." They replied, "But it is not." Exactly. And that is the whole problem. The word starving is what you should hear. When this sensor begins to drift, the engine control unit believes the engine is running lean even when it is not. So what does it do? It dumps in more fuel, more and more. Enough to keep the engine running smoothly, but at the cost of your wallet. Your MPG tanks. Your exhaust runs hotter. Carbon starts building up in places it should not. And the driver, completely unaware, keeps driving like everything is fine. Notice how MPG collapses when the signal goes bad. That is why fuel economy drops suddenly even when the car feels normal. Because the part that is failing is not mechanical. It is digital. And it is hidden in a place most drivers never see, inside a system most drivers never think about. Drivers blame the gas pump. They blame the weather. They blame the engine itself. But the truth is far simpler. Your fuel economy lives or dies based on a sensor you have never checked and probably did not even know existed. This is where your fuel dollars are being lost. The driver stared at me as the realization hit. So you are saying one little part is costing me all this fuel? I nodded. And it has been happening for months. Now the mystery had a face, a cause, and a price. Months of wasted fuel adds up fast. But knowing the problem is only the beginning. Next, you need to know how this sensor works, why it fails, and how to fix it before it costs you even more. Learn how to fix it and protect your MPG. The moment the scanner finished loading, the truth finally showed itself on the screen. Most drivers see meaningless numbers. A mechanic sees a confession. The long-term fuel trim was high, too high, slowly creeping upward like the engine was begging for fuel it did not actually need. That is the telltale signature. It means the engine control unit has been lied to for a long time. And it means one thing: a sensor inside the exhaust is no longer doing its job. Watch the fuel trim to spot the problem. People imagine sensors as perfect little digital devices that either work or do not. But that is not how engines operate. Sensors drift. They get lazy. They get coated in carbon, soot, oil vapor, and moisture. They slow down. They become inaccurate long before they become broken. And when the sensor we are talking about, the one responsible for controlling your air-fuel mixture, starts sending the wrong signals, your engine will burn fuel like it is going out of style. That slow drift costs you real money. Modern engines depend on that one little probe to tell them how to breathe. It sits in the exhaust, measuring oxygen levels in real time. Every fraction of a second, it tells the engine control unit whether the mixture is rich or lean. If everything is normal, the readings bounce rapidly between rich and lean. It is a dance, an engine ballet, and that constant switching keeps combustion clean and efficient. But when the sensor ages, the dance slows. It stops switching quickly. It gets stuck rich. It lags behind reality. And the engine control unit, the ECU, interprets that lag as a lean condition. So what does it do? It pumps in more fuel to fix the problem. More fuel on startup. More fuel during acceleration. More fuel cruising at highway speed. Even more fuel at idle. And your miles per gallon falls off a cliff while the engine still feels perfectly fine. Imagine your bathroom scale telling you you are starving even after a big meal, so you eat again. That is exactly what the engine control unit does. It trusts the sensor even when the sensor is wrong. Modern engines do not guess. They react. And they react instantly. The crazy part is that the engine hides the symptoms. It does not stumble. It does not misfire. It does not shake or hesitate, because the ECU compensates. The computer bends over backward trying to maintain smooth operation. It will keep doing that until something catastrophic happens. A clogged catalytic converter, a fouled spark plug, a stuck injector, or a blown-out fuel budget. That is why drivers always say the same thing, but the car feels normal. Of course it does. That is the trap. The first real sign is the gas needle moving faster. Everything else comes later. Inside the exhaust system, temperatures rise, rich fuel mixtures burn hotter, catalytic converters begin to overheat, carbon builds on intake valves, pistons, and cylinder heads. Oil contamination increases as unburned fuel mixes into the lubricant. Suddenly, your engine isn't just wasting fuel, it's degrading itself mile by mile. And the worst part? The check engine light rarely comes on. The sensor has to fail badly before the car admits something's wrong. Slight inaccuracies, the kind that cost you 20 to 40% of your miles per gallon, do not trigger a code. The engine control unit, ECU, simply compensates and keeps driving. This is why so many drivers think their fuel economy just got worse with age. It didn't. The sensor got worse. The engine control unit adapted. And your wallet paid the price. Even more disturbing is what mechanics see when they graph the sensor's behavior. A healthy sensor switches multiple times per second. The line jumps up and down like a heartbeat. A failing sensor moves like a dying pulse, slow, flat, delayed. Sometimes it sticks rich for seconds at a time. Sometimes it barely moves. Both patterns tell the same story. The engine control unit, ECU, is flying blind. I've seen engines with perfect compression, spotless internals, and great spark, still wasting gallons of fuel because the engine control unit keeps compensating for a bad reading. That's how powerful this sensor is. That's how unforgiving the system can be. And that's why you must understand the truth before you fix anything. Your fuel economy doesn't drop randomly. It drops because the one sensor controlling your entire air-fuel mixture starts lying to the engine. Now that you know what is happening inside the exhaust, inside the engine control unit, and inside your fuel trims, it is time for the part most drivers never learn: how to test this sensor like a professional and how to fix it before it drains another dollar from your tank. The real breakthrough always happens the moment you test the sensor directly. No guessing, no theories, just cold, undeniable data. With the engine warm, the scanner connected, and the fuel trims stabilized, I switched to the live graph. This is where the truth lives. A healthy sensor should fluctuate rapidly, bouncing between lean and rich several times per second. That is how an engine breathes. But when the line on the screen barely moves, or moves too slowly, or stays rich long enough to make the engine control unit panic, you know exactly what is killing the fuel economy. Most drivers think testing sensors requires a full mechanics education. Not true. Anyone can do it. Anyone can check fuel trims. Anyone can watch the sensor switch. Anyone can see the numbers that reveal whether the engine is running clean or wasting money. It takes an inexpensive scan tool and a little patience. Testing this sensor is not about being a genius. It is about paying attention to the right signals. Once you confirm the sensor is slow, stuck, or drifting, the fix is surprisingly simple. Sometimes cleaning it helps, especially when sulfur buildup, old fuel, or excessive moisture from constant short trips is the cause. Cleaning the threads and surrounding area, gently freeing carbon, and making sure the wiring connector is tight can restore proper switching in mild cases. But most of the time, especially if the car has over 100,000 miles, replacement is the smart move. Here is the part mechanics will not always tell you. Not all sensors are created equal. Cheap sensors often respond slowly or fail early, and that leads to the same MPG problems you were trying to fix. That is why brands matter. OEM, Denso, Bosch, and NTK are the ones that keep engines honest. They read quickly, they survive heat cycles, and they do not lie to your ECU. Replacing the sensor is not rocket science. Let the exhaust cool, use a proper oxygen sensor socket, apply penetrating oil if it is stuck, unscrew it carefully, install the new sensor with anti-seize on the threads, and torque it properly. Do not over-tighten, do not cross-thread. The whole job can take 15 minutes if you have the right tools, and the impact lasts years. When you start the engine again, the change is immediate. The idle smooths, the smell disappears, and the fuel trims reset closer to zero. For the first time in months, maybe years, the ECU is not fighting false data. It is running the engine the way it was engineered to run: clean, efficient, balanced. If you drive away and check your MPG over the next few days, the difference is not subtle. But the real magic happens after replacement. Modern ECUs must relearn, and the fuel trims must rebuild from scratch. You can guide the process. Begin with a gentle, warm idle, then light cruising at neighborhood speeds, and a steady drive at 45 to 55 miles per hour. No flooring it, and no short trip shutdowns. This teaches the ECU the correct behavior again, it teaches the true air-fuel ratio, and it restores balance, efficiency, and performance. And the prevention? It is simple. Maintain a clean air filter. Fix vacuum leaks quickly. Use decent fuel. Clean your MAF sensor every 6 months. Replace upstream components before they poison the reading. Protect the wiring. Keep the exhaust sealed. These habits protect that sensor and extend its life dramatically. Most people never do any of this. They just watch their miles per gallon fade year after year and assume their car is getting old. But you are different now. You understand the truth. You have seen how one hidden sensor can silently destroy fuel economy while pretending everything is fine. And you now know how to diagnose it, fix it, and prevent it. Before you click away, tell me in the comments, how much fuel do you think you have been wasting? If you want more hidden fixes, secret engine tricks, and mechanic-level knowledge, make sure you hit subscribe, because the next video exposes another silent killer inside your engine that most drivers never discover until it's too late.